Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talking Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at the evolution of the front seat backrest squabs for the Austin Healey range. Now this video is focusing on what we refer to as the big Healeys, which incorporated the 104, the 106 and the 3000 models. And within those groups, you effectively had, at the earliest, the BM1, and at the latest, the BJ8. So you effectively, I'm going to list them off now, you had the BM1, the BN2, the BN4, the BN6, the BN7, the BT7, the BJ7, and lastly, the BJ8. And effectively, over the production run era, they had three different versions of seat covers. It's probably around 15 years worth of production there, and they changed the seat cover design 3 times effectively. The BJ8, which is this one on the end, is rather unique because that was just literally done for the BJ8s, that particular design. But then these two here were the ones that covered the rest of the models here. And the reason I'm focusing on the backrest squabs is because they're the ones that change the most in terms of the design, and also it's what alters the trimming process the most. They are notoriously tight-fitting seat covers, and I've done several videos detailing the seat covers and the seat frames and the hardware, so be sure to check those out. Some of those videos will be listed at the end of this one, but otherwise please do spend a bit of time on the YouTube channel detailing those. I obviously do have other videos that showcase all of these seats complete, obviously including the cushion bases as well, but I wanted to focus on the backrest squabs because they are the area that cause the most sort of head scratching in terms of the way they are trimmed, and it's also the one that causes the most debate within the industry in terms of correctness to period fitting and whatnot. And this is where we come up trumps because we know that our patterns are very accurate to the original stylings and whatnot. And again, I do encourage you to watch a video that I've done which literally shows you the correct measurement between the piping ridge and the inner piping there, compared to an original, which we know is absolutely correct, and we know that several of the other suppliers out in the industry make that gap a lot narrower. So do bear that in mind and do check that out. But yeah, I just wanted to go over basically the 3 examples that we have here, and we'll start chronologically. So we'll start with the earliest, which was the 104 and the early 106 models. So effectively this version of the seat backrest here was suitable for the BM1, the BN2, and then some of the BN4 models. Now the BN4s, it was very much, there was a chassis number change which changed a lot of the interior trim. However, I wouldn't always take that as gospel. These production lines back in the day were notoriously inconsistent. If they'd run out of one particular seat frame or whatever, they would just throw another one in. So always take that element with a pinch of salt. But effectively, the first incarnation of the BN4 certainly used this version of the seat. We've actually seen some BN6s with this as well, so keep that in mind. But effectively, the chassis number change should have been around 68,959. Anything before that would have had this seat style. Anything after would have had this one here. Now, in terms of the obvious detailing of the seats, in terms of the differences, it's all related to this backrest panel here. You can see this material here wraps all the way around, and you actually pull it over around the seat mechanism, and it has this hide and banding. You have tacking strips on the back here, big hockey stick tacking strips on the back there, whereas the later version, the backrest cover ended here, and you had these separate gloves that you pulled on, and then that was carried on into the BJ8 era as well. So that's the main identifier in terms of the seats cover design here. Let's just cross-check that against a book here. So this is obviously from a 104 here, and you can see the piping going all the way around the ridge, down here and round, and it's all incorporated into the material of the backrest back there, and you have the hide 'em and the hide 'em chrome finishes on the end there. Now, as I mentioned, the way they're trimmed as well is unique because you had these tacking strips. You can just about make out the outline of them there. They're like hockey sticks that sort of bent around. They're in 2 pieces, so you had one that went to the middle there, and then another one that went around there. So obviously you need 4 per car set. We do sell them in car sets, so you'll end up with 4 per car set, and then it's trimmed all the way around. Now this particular seat cover here has actually been done to exact OEM specifications, down to even the type of leather used. So originally from the factory, the majority of the seats left in what we refer to as leather-faced. Other companies out there refer to that as leather, and it effectively means that the majority of the seat cover is leather, and certainly the bits that touch your body as you're actually sat in the seat are leather. So for example, horseshoe, pleated panel, and these inner bits here, they're all leather, and then the retainer here is vinyl, and all of the backrest here is vinyl. That's how the majority of the seats left the factory, and that is what we refer to as leather-faced. Other companies refer to that as leather, and that should not be confused with what we refer to as full leather, which is an upgrade option that not many people offer, which is effectively no vinyl whatsoever, everything's in leather. Now, this particular customer over in Germany who we've done this work for, he's gone for mostly OEM spec, but a couple of upgrades. And actually what he's wanted to do is literally go for the exact leather used by the factory way back when, which was, of course, the Connolly Vomel leather. Now, Connolly Vomel leather is a very unique leather, and I do encourage you to read our handbook blog post on that on our website, because it's they try and keep the process in which the leathers are made very consistent with how they did it almost 100 years ago. Obviously, some sort of regulatory changes mean that they have to change certain things, but effectively they've tried to keep it so that it's surface dyed, veg tan, etc. And we can supply Connolly Vomel leather for any kit that you want, but please do contact us about the pricing on that one, because it's a very unique leather in terms of the way that it's priced and the number of hides needed depending on the job. So keep that in mind. But this customer's gone the whole hog in terms of that. He really wanted the car to be authentic to how it left the factory, down to even the detail of the leather there. And as you can see, Vomel leather, it's a lovely leather to work with actually, because it's quite stretchy, which is lovely on these seats, because as I've mentioned, these seats here are notoriously tight fitting. In fact, all of them are, but this one especially, because you have to get that material coming around here over these mechanism elements of things, they're very, very tight fitting. Even professional trimmers really struggle with this, which is why we'd encourage you to either send us your seat frames or let us use some aftermarket frames and do the job for you, because then you'll end up with beautifully trimmed seats like this. Other companies out there, and I don't want to go on this too much, but other companies out there, they have altered their seat covers. They've made them bigger, which makes the initial process of trimming them a lot easier in terms of fitting them on the frame, but it makes the job of actually getting a nice tight fitting plump seat cover like that almost impossible. You end up with bagginess everywhere. You're ending up using wadding all over the place here, and I have gone into this in several videos that I've done, so I do encourage you to check those out there. It's all related to the molded seat foams, which do 80% of the job well, but you do need to play with them to get it to work correctly. But then after that, you need the correct seat cover design in order to get results like this, so do bear that in mind. Even down to, just look how consistent that is with the piping going around that frame there. That's how you want it. That is the ridge of the frame, and the piping is sitting right on that ridge there, and that's exactly how you want it. Anyway, moving on to the sort of middle design, shall we say, which covered pretty much all the 3000s, apart from the BJ8, obviously, and then the last incarnation of the sort of 106 models, BM4. So this was, strictly speaking, the one that went after that chassis number I mentioned before, but like I say, take that with a pinch of salt. So essentially, some of the BN4s would have left with this. Then after that, it would have been BN6s, BN7s, BT7s, and BJ7s. And this has been done just in black grained leather, which is we basically, for the majority of our colours, we can offer grained or smooth leather in pretty much all the colours. Then obviously Vomel is treated completely separately. We can offer that as an upgrade package if you want, but this has been done in grained, black with black piping, again done to OEM factory spec, so it's the leather-faced version there. Obviously we can offer a full leather version if you prefer, where there is no vinyl involved at all. It's all leather, so do contact us if that is of interest. Now, the hardware to this, the seat frames actually did change between these two. They look very similar. That one there didn't have any reinforcement ribs going from left to right, whereas this one does have reinforcement ribs. Again, I have done videos detailing the differences between those, so do check that out. But the seat foam actually inside is identical. It's shared between these two here, so do bear that in mind. But the key difference on this that I've mentioned before, which I'm now just going to reiterate, is the way that they are trimmed around here in terms of these separate gloves here, and also the tacking process. Whereas this one here, you had the tacking strips on the back and the material went down and round and onto the back and then was hidden by this hidem over here. This one here didn't. It was almost the reverse actually. So the material on the back went round the frame there, met the retainer down here, and actually you have tacking strips going all the way around there. Now, some of the cars did actually have tacking strips. It's flexi-ply. Other cars did not. They used glue or Fixings, we would encourage using a tacking strip. It makes the job of trimming so much easier because trimming is an organic process, and basically that means that you might sort of tack down this area here, think you've done in that area there, do something over here, and then realise to get a better finish somewhere else you need to undo a bit of here and alter it. Tacking is very easy to do because you're just undoing the tacks, whereas gluing and fixings can get very, very messy. So we do encourage people to use tacking strips, even if your car did not leave the factory like that. Now let's just cross-check this in the book. So yeah, these are the later style ones here. You can see that sort of line ridge there, which is obviously this part here on either side here. There you go, down there. So that's that version there. Now, apart from that, the concept of trimming is exactly the same. Like I say, it is just a bit harder to trim these ones because you have to wrap that material all the way around. Whereas these ones here, it's a bit easier because you have these separate gloves which actually go on first, and they're put right up really tight. In fact, you want to be almost turning these inside out. You do want to be turning these inside out. Taking a bit of the seam allowance off to get even more pull up there, and then you're kind of anchoring those in place up there, and then that becomes your guide as to how much you need to pull this down. We get several people that have mentioned in the past that it would be easier in the trimming process if we made these gloves about an inch longer. It gives you a bit more play, and it would. I don't disagree with that notion, but actually we've done this by design. We know that if you keep it the same length that we always do here, and you really pull those up there, then that becomes the guidance of how well you've trimmed the top part here, because a lot of people, they don't get the piping sitting on the ridge of the seat cover here. You have this kind of little gap here, a little air gap, because they are very, very tight fitting, and it does take a decent amount of manipulation to do it, which we're more than happy to guide you with if you're unsure. But that basically means that this comes down far enough here that it covers over any gap there. And some people say, oh, the gloves are too short, I can see a bit of the frame or the foam in between. And that's not the case. That means that that's either not pulled up enough, which is the easier part, but more likely this isn't pulled down enough. So yeah, we get obviously people feeding back with add an extra inch here, and we do it for a couple of long-term customers that have struggled before in the past with certain things like that. So we're always open to that, but we would encourage you to trust that we know what we're doing, and we have done that by design. So do bear that in mind. But the overall trimming process is exactly the same. You can see the lovely definition in the horseshoes between them there. And like I say, it's all tacked round here using the FlexiPly thin strip versus the larger hockey sticks on those ones there. So that is the sort of middle version, or the majority of the 3000s. And then finally you had the BJ8, which was unique just to the BJ8 range. Now, in terms of the seat hardware, the seat frame's identical to that one, but different to that one obviously, but the seat foam is actually different. We have a different seat foam for the BJ8 on that one there. But the overall concept again of the trimming is very, very similar. You use the same tacking strip process down here on the bottom. You use the same concept with the gloves here. The unique thing about the BJ8s, and this wasn't for all of the cars, but the majority of the cars left with vinyl ambler, unlike sort of leather for the earlier cars there. And for vinyl ambler, they had two very unique elements to them. They had this welded square pattern in the middle on the pleated panels, and then they also used this, we refer to it as chrome piping, other people refer to it as herringbone, and often this piping went yellow in the sunlight. In fact, let's just reference it in the book. So we're talking about these seats here, and vinyl ambler covered seats. Oh, where's it gone? Here we go. Vinyl ambler trim. The piping on this has yellowed with age. So originally it left the factory like this, and it's basically a plastic with a kind of silver and black string in the middle of it. And I believe we're the only company in the world that actually has that piping. We're one of the only companies in the world that can offer the embossed pattern, but I believe we're the only company in the world that stocks this piping. So bear that in mind as well. But it's not all the cars left with that. So that was a decent majority of the cars left with vinyl ambler. And like I say, if you left with vinyl ambler, you had these little squares embossed on the pleated panels of both the backrest and also the cushions. But then you also had this piping, chrome piping, contrasting on the outside only. The inside was always the same colour as the main trim there. Now, some cars did leave with what we refer to as the leather-faced option, so leather seats like these, where the facings are leather, but the backs and surrounds are vinyl. That was a commonly seen upgrade option from the factory. So by all means, there are a decent number of cars in the world that had Leatherfaced seats leaving from the factory. Then you'd probably have very few special orders, full leather ones, normally for diplomats, foreign-based diplomats that were doing custom orders from the factory. But the majority left with vinyl ambler, with a decent amount leaving with the Leatherfaced spec. But yeah, the overall concept again on these ones is very similar in terms of the trimming process as the earlier ones there. And again, these are the slightly easier ones because you have these glove elements here, but you do really need to keep in mind the ridge of the piping there down to here. Again, I do really encourage people to check out the other videos that I've done individually showing these seats here fully trimmed up, as well as the seat covers and the hardware, because we really love going to these sorts of details because we know we're unique in the industry. Not many companies out there, if any at all, go to this sort of level of depth, and certainly to this level of quality and workmanship with the trimming job. So I do encourage people to check those out. But I just wanted to do a fairly brief video detailing effectively the evolution of the Austin Healey seats from the earliest BM1 up until the last BJ8. Hope you found it useful. Please obviously remember to like, share and subscribe. If you have a Healey restoration going on, then please do let us know if we can help. And I look forward to you tuning in next time. Thanks very much.